like right before this, I felt like I was getting a steady stream of auditions, and then right before COVID too, steady stream of auditions. How I don't know if you can relate to that, but how do you deal with, or how do you sort of handle that sort of stoppage when you might be getting momentum or something, and then it stops?
Mine, when everything started, was actually on the writer side of things. I had a couple scripts that we were pitching. There were some meetings on the books. It felt like there were some wheels starting to turn, and then the WGA strike started, and of course all of those meetings went away. And so that was sort of my moment of love. Oh, okay. And it did. It took me a little while to it took me a couple weeks. Like, I redecorated my whole apartment and like bought new I had another, I spent a couple weeks on like that kind of a project. And then when I finished that, I was like, oh, now what do I do?
Right.
That was sort of when it set in. I was like, oh, okay. I have actually been affected by this in that moment, like, you have these meetings on the books, you have people interested in scripts, you start thinking all of these amazing, trajectory, daydreams.
But you're not in the WGA. You had potential to like sell some writing stuff, and then you just felt.
I'm not in the WGA, but my agency is so basically once the strike started, all of that paused.
Right.
I forget where you started this question at.
Just how do you get over the momentum stopping? How do you fight through that or overcome that?
I just started working on, I just went back to me, and I spent the whole summer working on a feature that had been on the to-do list.
That's amazing. To
get that done.
Yeah.
So I've spent the last we started on it in April, and then really kicked up our gear in I guess March, we really kicked up our gear in May. So I spent the whole summer working on that. And I'm working on other projects with friends, like a play, other things like that.
Just keeping yourself busy.
Keeping myself busy.
Going back to the basics kind
exactly.
of. Exactly.
Yeah. Helping other friends who are doing shorts and things this summer that, we're doing independently. I didn't have anything that I created this summer because I was writing, but helping other people build their projects. Just keeping busy.
Is your emphasis more in a perfect world? Are you a writer or an actor or a hyphenate?
Hyphenate.
Okay.
But I would like to write the pieces that I get to
Of
act.
course. That helps.
Yeah.
So were you auditioning quite a bit pre-strike?
Not so much, mostly commercially.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, like in that feeling of the switch, I didn't so much feel the the well dry up in auditions.
Right.
Theatrically, I didn't have tons and tons before the strike started.
Sure.
But I think it is then that fear of it's always like, well, they'll come, maybe, they'll come eventually. And now it's that like, okay, well, when will they come? When will they come?
That's funny for me how I just viewed what you said. I'm like, oh, there's going to be a natural reset here, and you might just be in the natural reset. You know what I mean? Like, they're going to reset everything, and then, oh, there's Jacob right on the front of my thing, and boom.
Yep.
Whereas, like, I'm going to make it a pity part about me. They're like, oh, we've seen Mike a few times. Let's reset. You know what I mean?
New photos. Just get new photos.
Grass is always greener on the other side.
Exactly. But yeah, so that was sort of, I feel like, how the switch of things. But, we did this obviously different, but we did this a couple years ago during COVID.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit and lockdown, we went into lockdown, and my friend and I made a whole web series on Zoom,
That's great.
24 episodes on Zoom. I'll say it, we were the first. Other people say we were the first, but we were the first because we launched our first episode on March 30th of 2020.
He's got receipts.
I have receipts. We were the first. So I'm not the pivot doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
Right. This hit me a little bit harder or differently, not harder, differently, because when COVID happened 3 years ago, I had nothing. There was no prospects on the horizon. So I was like, great, let's pivot and make our own thing. This time being in a position where, okay, there were potential things happening and now those are paused, that hit a little bit differently.
Right.
But the pivot doesn't scare me. I used to be a chorus dancer. I can pivot, turn, and do a kickball change.
No big deal. MBD. But it sounds like you approach it really healthily. Like, a lot of people can use it as sort of a paralysis, right? And a pity party and just sort of stop what they're doing. And that's sort of the crux of the problem with acting in general, right? So much of it is you waiting for other people to make decisions.
Yeah.
And you're taking you're spinning that, and then when this happens, you're taking it in your own hands. You're writing, you're making content on your own, which is, I think, a really healthy and great way to approach it.